Welcome back to Lakers Latest, folks. I'm coming to you, as always, from my kitchen in Studio City, California, where it is a scalding hot 93 degrees right now. I know I brought up in the past couple videos, it's been hot in LA. This is the hottest it's been all summer. It's going to be like this the next couple weeks. We'll probably at some point get to 100. The heat wave's coming, so everyone, if you got a pool, make sure you go in it. Stay inside. Everyone stay hydrated. Make sure that AC's on. You're cooling. If you got pets, make sure they're staying inside. If you got dogs, make sure they got shoes or the paw pad thing so their paws don't get hot. But yeah, let's hop right into it. So we got some stuff to talk about here. Again, not an insane amount going on, but we'll talk about all that we can for now. So let's hop right into it. So let's talk about LeBron's future. So we've kind of talked about this before, but I just want to bring it up because there's a recent ESPN article that kind of talked about all things Lakers, and LeBron's future is one of the things that they touched up on. We've kind of talked about LeBron's future, saying it's most likely that he's probably going to leave the Lakers after this year. Now, that's not a guarantee, but we'll see what happens. Let's assume, hypothetically, the Lakers don't win a championship this year. If you're LeBron, you have a few options. You can come back to the Lakers. Obviously, this is assuming he doesn't retire, which is a very real possibility after this season. But assuming he doesn't retire after this year, when you look at LeBron's options, especially to contend for a championship, his options would be potentially to come back to the Lakers, give it a go one more year. And then this is where it gets interesting, because now obviously LeBron wants to contend for a championship, but there's only a handful of contending teams in the NBA. And most of those contending teams don't have, even now they don't have it, and they're not going to have it next year, salary cap space. So, LeBron could leave the Lakers, but, I just can't imagine a scenario where he's going to get even a one-year max deal of 30, 40 million. No one's going to have that. Maybe you can get an MLE of, one of the higher MLEs, which I believe is 14.9 now, for teams that are under the second apron. That's a possibility. You look at a team like the Cavs. The Cavs are over the second apron. The most they'll be able to offer is $5 million. The Knicks are over the second apron, obviously. There's been LeBron to the Knicks talks since he came into the league. It hasn't happened, but if he really wanted to do it, he'd make $5 million at the most. So I think we're going to try and find the middle ground of, does LeBron want to go to contending team, and is he willing to take a pay cut? Because that's what he's going to have to do. The Lakers obviously would be able to afford to pay him a little bit more, but it's going to be difficult for a contending team to offer him the money he wants. And keep in mind, this is a guy that's lived max contract. Obviously took a little bit less in Miami when he was there, but LeBron knows he's LeBron James. He's under the expectation that obviously he's still a phenomenal player, but all the additional stuff he brings off the court, he's going to want that max deal, even if for 1 year. And I just don't know. If he wants to go to a contending team, assuming he were to leave the Lakers, he's going to have to sacrifice some money. It's just going to have to happen. No one's going to have the money to give him what he wants. I know, obviously, he's, one of the most, if not the most valuable NBA player besides Jordan there's ever been. He's probably on path to pass him, but there's going to be options for him to contend, but he's going to have to come to acceptance that he would have to take less. If he wants more, I could see him coming back to the Lakers. I do think it's still a possibility. I don't think it's probable. It's not. I wouldn't call it impossible, but I think right now it's improbable. But he is going to have some options after this year. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. As for this year, let's just hope that, LeBron, whether it's his last year or not, gives everything he has to the Lakers, Luka, to really try and do everything in his power to help the Lakers contend for that one more championship before he either leaves or retires and sails off into the sunset. All right, so let's talk about Austin Reeves. I know I briefly touched upon him in the last video, but Austin Reeves, after Luka and LeBron, is the most important Laker. We've seen such an incredible progression of him since he came to the Lakers to now. He gets better every year. Last year, got up to 20 points, 5.8 assists. He's been an incredible find, and he's been a fantastic player. Now, there are obviously some concerns, especially, I would say, with his performance in the playoffs. I think defensively, we know that's not his game. We know he's never going to be a great defender. He's never going to be an all-first-team defender. He's never going to compete for, Defensive Players of the Year. That's not his game, which is why I think the first round of the playoffs was all the more concerning because he didn't play well offensively either. Now, I think we can chalk some of that up to the fact that he's still getting used to playing with LeBron and Luka. Obviously, he's played with LeBron, but I mean with LeBron and Luka both on the same team, he kind of was that second option. And then besides AD, but AD's hurt all the time. So it's something that obviously he was getting used to. I think he shot 31% in that playoff series, a very poor showing. Defensively, everyone on the Timberwolves, anytime they had Austin Reeves on him, just give that person the ball and go to the basket because he was just getting absolutely bullied every single game. It was tough to watch. But he is due for a contract extension, and I've seen 20 million. I've seen an article yesterday, the past few days, that he's going to be looking for upwards of $30 million a season. And I mean, I don't blame him for going for that. He's obviously not a max player, but he's a really good player. And in this day and age, with the NBA landscape, with some of the deals that some of these players have signed, I don't think that's crazy unreasonable. With that being said, I think you need to see another progression in his year, and I think you really need to see how that relationship with Luka is going to develop. LeBron, like we said, is probably going to be gone after this year. But if he really wants to be like that second fiddle to Luka, we really need to see how they complement each other and how they play together. Obviously, Luka needs to have the ball in his hands. Reeves can play a little bit off ball, but he also likes having the ball in his hands. He's a very talented player. But that's going to be the thing. How does he play with Luka for a full season? Envisioning LeBron off the team, is he really someone you want to commit $30 million to that you think is that number two piece next to Luka? Or do you think, you know what, maybe he's not the guy, maybe we should try and do a sign and trade for someone else and get more assets that we could compile for a bigger play? I'm not saying that should happen. But I'm saying this is a very big year for Reeves because the Lakers will obviously evaluate all that stuff. Is he that guy? How is he playing next to Luka? And yeah, we'll see what happens with that. So next one, this is just going to be a little fun, just a little revisionist history, because I saw this pop up on Twitter somewhere, but an article from like 2017 that basically said the Lakers basically tried to trade Kobe for LeBron in 2007, which is astonishing. Obviously, there's never going to be a scenario where the Cavs were actually to consider that. That was LeBron in 2007. He was probably 23, 24. On path for, obviously he's one of the arguably greatest player who ever lived. I just think it's so interesting. Like, obviously, remember, it's almost like revisionist history. Like, people can forget, as great as Kobe was for the Lakers, and I think he's the greatest Laker of all time, it was very tenuous for a couple of years there. Like, at those kind of 2004 to like 2007 before the Gasol trade, like, it was tenuous. Like, not much was happening. The Lakers weren't that good. Like, Kobe wasn't happy. He requested a trade at one point. I remember saying there was some time that they almost traded him to the Pistons. So it's really funny looking back like at those now and saying, wow, like LeBron for Kobe in 2007. Like, can you imagine if that would have happened? First of all, Kobe would have been pissed because I can tell you that man would not have been happy living in Cleveland, Ohio. Not that anyone's happy living in Ohio. Sorry, Ohio people. But it's just so interesting looking back at it now. Obviously, they developed such a good relationship before Kobe, obviously, RIP to the Mamba, passed. But it's just so funny when you look at those trades that didn't happen. There's so many in NBA history, so I just find it so interesting that it was even discussed, that the Lakers even brought it up. I mean, for the main reason of it's a waste of time. As great as Kobe was, like, no one's trading LeBron James for anyone at that point. Like, there's not a player in the NBA that they would have been like, yeah, I'm going to trade him for LeBron, or I'm going to trade LeBron for him. That was just never going to happen. But I just find it very interesting. It's very funny when you look back at stuff like that. Obviously, with everything that's happened since, where their careers went, the trajectories it's taken. Just funny looking back at that revisionist history because it's so interesting looking at the crazy trades that almost happened but never did. And this is just one of them, but there's obviously so many through the course of NBA history. So, obviously, two Laker legends, RIP Kobe, we'll always love you. LeBron, hopefully you got one more legendary year left in you, maybe two, who knows, but we'll see what happens. We're going to finish up with how would I grade Rob Pelinka's tenure as the Lakers president of basketball operations and general manager. So, I think Rob's done a pretty good job. I think at the beginning of his tenure, before LeBron got here, obviously it was not very good. People didn't like him. People were worried. LeBron comes, they trade for AD. go on to win the championship. I know it's a bubble championship, but it still counts. It's still an NBA championship. Obviously, in the 5 years that have succeeded that, little up and down. AD injuries, some first round exits, some losses to the Nuggets. So I think it started off strong. It's been a little up and down since then. I still think I would have to give Pelinka a solid B. First of all, he obviously brought in LeBron, brought in AD, helped them win a championship. The years after that were kind of up and down. But then the Luka trade to me has to bring it back up. I mean, you figured out who's going to be your next franchise player for the next, hopefully, 10 to 15 years. He's an unbelievable player. Future, face of the franchise, everything you can want in a superstar. And that, to me, I would probably say before the Luka trade, maybe Rob was at like a B minus. I want to say B minus. I feel like I can't say C plus because they did win the NBA championship, but the years after that were just so up and down. It was a little frustrating, but I'm gonna give him a solid B. Obviously, he's not perfect. I think it would have probably, had it not been for the Luka trade, been closer to a C plus B minus, probably B minus. But yeah, I have him as a solid B. I think he has done a good job so far this offseason. I think he's done a pretty good job at adding pieces. Ayton obviously is a talented player with some attitude issues, but I think if JJ Redick gets him motivated and playing the best, he's going to be a really solid addition. Marcus Smart obviously is a championship addition, phenomenal defender, a guy that's going to really help out both units, especially defensively. And Jake LaRavia is the other addition, 3-and-D guy, really good shooter, a guy that kind of touched upon in the last video. You want to surround Luka with as many shooters as possible. So LaRavia's, another guy that they added this year that I think they've done a pretty good job. So yeah, I give him a B, but I think we're still waiting on that one more off-season move. But overall, I do think Rob's done a good job. He's not perfect, far from it, but he still has done a pretty solid job, so I would give him a B. So we'll see what happens for the rest of off-season. We'll see how the post-LeBron era goes. But I still think he's done a pretty solid job for the most part. But that's it for me today, guys. Until next time, I will catch you later. Have a good one.